Hi, guys, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Prerna. And today we have with us Marcas Hemmila, sir, who is founder of Discover Ignite, who is running a podcast and doing so great work. Welcome, sir. I'm so happy to have you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I have seen almost all your videos, and I was going through stuff that you tell about self improvement and everything. I have to say one thing that I don't know. I suddenly feel motivated after each of watching each of your video, and there's something about the video. So I would want to know how your journey started, sir, and how did it go, and how did you get into podcasting, and more and more. So would you like to share?
Yes. It all kind of started, I've always had passion, but I've never actually executed on it. And I think the biggest thing for me when I started out I had a change in perspective. I had a lot of different struggles going on in my life uh, at about 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. And so what really happened was I had this essentially this aha moment where it was like, well, I'm turning 40. I've only got so much more time to live, right? So ultimately, what I wanted to do is start executing on my passion because I've talked about it for such a long time. And it wasn't until I got older that I realized I got to take advantage of the time that I have. And so I've always been a person that, I've seen a lot of people struggle and I want to help them. And I'm happy to hear that you get the drive and stuff off of my videos because that's what I want to help people with. I want to help people with igniting the change that they want in their life. And the best way to do that is by leading by example. And so I try to provide that. I try to provide a transparency through my videos and the things that I do to follow your passion. And and you feel that energy when you see someone that follows their passion. And for myself, it's following and finding passion was about being curious. And I always tell people you need to be curious and then actually follow up with that because like I stated before, like when I was younger I had so many passions and yet I never followed through with all of them. Some of them I did, some of them I did not. But I realized that when I started following through with every essentially curious thought and gone like 5 whys deep, I really started to understand different perspectives and different thoughts and ideas that have really just shaped a different essentially reality for me that I've executed on and something that I have true passion for. And I wake up every morning excited to go start doing it again. That's not saying that every day is like that because you're only going to be so good as whatever it is that day brings, right? Life happens, stuff happens, but I'm always excited to get up and start executing on the dream that I have and the passions that I have and following up with them. And I realize that when I go 5 whys deep, that I'm uncovering more things that I become more curious about, and that continues my motivation, that continues my drive to want to go out and do more. And so podcasting was one of those things, right? Podcasting was a thing that I've talked about for so long. I started a YouTube channel, then I didn't want to get overwhelmed. And so I held off on the podcasting. And then last year I was just like, I'm not going to hold off anymore. I started doing it. I started interviewing people that had passion, that I saw the passion and drive to want to make change, same as myself. And so I wanted to interview those people, get to understand those people, along with a lot of the different experience and stuff I had along the way. But that's what's essentially driven me to this point.
Lovely, lovely. So, I want to understand, okay, like you told me that you are creating content. So, I'm a content creator too, and I would want to know that often when we create content, so we often doubt ourselves, and there are days when, I'm sure you are also not feeling like getting up and motivating people out there. Because, yeah, let's be honest, we also feel demotivated at times, and we do not feel like motivating getting up and getting dressed and in front of the camera and doing it all. So yeah, would you like to tell a little about that and how do you deal with that?
Yes, I mean, yes, we do all have those days, and that's what I think. really helps define who we are is the more we can overcome those different days, realize that not every day, you just try to bring your best every day. Some days, your best is your best and it's not going to be the most motivational day. But what I've always found for myself is, people talk about your why. Yes, that always matters, but I think a lot of different times you just need to start the ball rolling. Once you're in motion, start doing things. I think music is a big thing, right? Music helps me, it amps me up, it helps me get going. A lot of times I think about the project I'm working on, right? And this is why I talk about being curious about stuff, because a lot of times you uncover stuff that helps motivate you to be like, oh, well, I can do this and I can do that. And I think you need to have a broader perspective on things, because I think we can get too one dimensional, and I think that's where we burn out on motivation. Where if you have, if you're into art or singing or reading or something else that's different from what you're doing, it helps bring new perspective in. So it helps to keep that motivation going, and something I've really found that helps me.
Wonderful, wonderful. I would want to ask you something, sir. I was watching all your videos and I want to know how is it that you're confident and so energetic in all of them? You are. Would you like to share something about that? Because I really want to take that from you. I really want to learn that from you. And I would want to know where is that coming from? How do you do that always? So is it like
Yeah.
you shoot, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, go on. Yeah, I was saying, is it that you shoot the same day all the videos or how it works?
No, actually, I don't do them all, every single day. And like we just talked about, like it's sometimes I have to find my own motivation. But what it is it's finding like-minded people. I think really help. They help ignite that desire to want to do it. Right, like the conversations we have that ignites me to come on here and want to share that. A lot of times, I think getting up and finding the motivation to do it. I think you have to not only just keep that ball rolling. Uh, Sorry, I lost train of thought. Well, what was the question again?
That's okay, that's okay. I was asking how is it that you're confident in all your
Oh,
videos and you're
confidence.
full of energy? Yeah.
Yeah. So as far as like the confidence, for me, it's overcoming struggle, right? And I think ultimately is pushing that boundary of being comfortable with stuff. And I think the more you do that, it's like working out, right? And repetition. If you don't do it enough, like you can become comfortable with not doing it. And so getting out of your comfort zone a little bit each and every day, it proves to yourself that I can do it. And a lot of times we don't have a reference point in which we can look back like, oh, well, I've overcome this. So how much more difficult is this? I just know I got to push a little bit further and then I'll eventually get it. And a lot of times you just got to be comfortable with failure and repetition and realize that eventually you get it.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. And also, I would want to understand, like in your podcast, also, are you talking about motivation? Would you share a little what you were talking about in your podcast with everyone?
As far as the podcast, I try to find different ways to help give people perspective on things, uh, give experiences, give tools that help with this. I talk about meditation. I talk about breathing techniques. I talk about different experiences that I've been through that have really kind of helped me shift my perspective. And I think that's one of the biggest things is shifting your perspective on things and then actually going out and experiencing it, because I think once you start experiencing what that thing is, that's when you really start to understand what you're missing out on, and that kind of pulls you in to want to be motivated to want to go do it once you actually see that you're capable of doing these things. And so I try to provide um, insight into that. I try to provide interviews with people that are doing it right now, so that way it helps motivate you and get you to ignite the change that you really want and to be passionate about what you do.
I think it's because of passion only that people like you are feeling confident, are so confident and full of energy. And I think that's what motivates me to do the stuff that I do. So I think passion has a big, big role. You mentioned in one of the interviews, sir, that I always follow my gut feeling and I always follow the vibe and the way the universe is guiding you. So I would want to know more about it because I am also a person who tries to listen to the universe and go with the vibe. So, would you like to tell me a little more about that too?
Yes, I think intuition is extremely important. I think a lot of times you can't hear or feel that intuition unless like life puts you in a situation where it's almost screaming at you, right? The intuition is screaming at you. That's when you listen. And so a lot of times what I talk about like meditation and when I talk about deep breathing, it's to get you in the moment so that you can amplify that voice or that feeling of intuition inside you, and then to be aware of it and to realize, okay, well, I have to take action here. And again, a lot of times it takes a repetition to build that awareness of that intuition. And you realize the more that you work on this, the more that it's there, the more you can hear it, the more clear that the voice or that feeling comes through, and you can start acting more on it. And it's really important to know that you only get the next step, right? You don't you don't get one or two, three steps. You just get the next step, and that's really all you need. And if you're comfortable, you need to be comfortable with that. I think a lot of times with uncertainty, people may not feel be comfortable with that, but just be aware, right? How many times have you had that instinct, that intuition to do something, and you found out that you went against it when you realized that intuition was correct? And most 9 out of 10 times, it's always correct.
Yeah, so yeah, I would want to know that how do you find out it's correct? Because at times I don't know. I'm only thinking, is my gut feeling right or should I go with the gut feeling? So do you have any like tip for me that I how I can understand or my audience can understand?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing here is when you're following intuition, right? You only get the next steps. You don't really know, and a lot of times, we live in a society where we want everything instantaneously, so we're used to that, and that's what we want. But when you're following intuition, you have to realize that a lot of times it can make sense tomorrow, or it can make sense a couple of years from now. You just have to be okay with going with the intuition, because a lot of times you realize that by looking back the puzzle actually fits together perfectly, but you don't realize that till after time. And so you just again have to be comfortable with the unfamiliarity of what is currently going on, just as long as you're following that instinct and being curious and enjoying it's all about the journey, right? And enjoying it and not putting the stress in. And I think that's the biggest thing is we put so much stress on ourselves. So just get comfortable with the uncomfortable and allow yourself to follow intuition and realize and know that it's guiding you in the right way.
Yeah, I think maybe the process is making it all worth and the experience is making it beautiful. So yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So anything you would want to add before leaving, sir? Any message for my audience?
Just that I think it's important to everybody. Like they say, everybody has a song in them, right? They want to share with the world. I think it's important that you do follow your intuition. I think it's important that you do be curious about life. And a lot of times, I think we're in a position now in the world where it's extremely important that we find that intuition inside us, and that we actually start executing on these things and start living the experience that is life.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for coming. There's so much to learn from you, and I wish to be as confident and full of energy as you are during my
Thank you so much.
podcast, during my live sessions. There's so much to learn from you. I'm so glad that you came. You know, they say that when your vibes match with the same type of people, you attract them. So this is how they say, and I think when I was looking at your videos and everything, this is something similar that I'm working on past few weeks, and I would say maybe our vibes matched, and that's how I could reach out to you and we could connect. So thank you so much for coming. It was great. I would continue to learn from you, and I would want to be as confident, like I said, on my podcast the way you are. Thank you so much for coming. It was great having you.
Most definitely. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. We'll take your leave now. Bye.